It's fantastic.
Doesn't
Same
it?
like he ever did.
Carl, Barbara, you? I mean, Marion was commenting on how wonderful you looked.
You know, we all get older, but some people kind of don't change, you know.
So aging is the goal.
You don't change.
No, never. Never. So, you know, aging is the goal of public health.
Who is?
Aging.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you don't age.
Because prevention.
Exactly.
I do exercise regularly, by the way.
What do you
I
do?
go to the gym about 3 times a week.
What do you do at the gym?
And I do a treadmill, and I do strengthening exercises, and I feel great. Actually, that's probably what keeps me going and feeling, well, if I don't exercise, I probably would have been less.
Which once more, I just want to check with you once more because I don't want to take any chances. Well, I find that exercise makes a great deal of difference to me too. And if I don't exercise regularly, I start to feel discouraged a little bit. I lose some of my morale.
You always have been active.
And well, yeah, but of course, we used to go swimming together. Not swimming, we used to go jogging together. Remember when you were thinking about becoming dean?
Uh-huh.
We would go jogging at the gym.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I remember that. Okay, well, I'll hopefully edit out some of this beginning preparation, but in the meantime, I can chop off the beginning, and I can chop off the end. And if there's really a problem, I can chop out something in the middle. So you don't have to worry, be totally free to say what you like.
Oh, sure, yeah, exactly.
Right. So, first of all, today is October the 10th, 2014. I'm Vic Schoenbach, and this is Dr. Michel Ibrahim, who has been a professor in our department, the Department of Epidemiology at UNC, the chair of the department, the dean of the School of Public Health at UNC, and he's now begun his 3rd or 4th career, I guess it is, at Johns Hopkins University, where he is working full-time and being paid half-time. Retirement. So, Michel, I'm so grateful to you for taking the time to talk to me. And I wondered if you could give us a little bit of autobiographical background about your life. I know you're from Egypt, you were born there. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that, but first let me thank you, Vic, for being a terrific faculty member and a wonderful person to add to the faculty. And you always tell me I have been a part of your career, but if I helped in any way, whatever you achieved made me so proud. And you are a terrific teacher. I remember when we taught together, I was impressed with the way that you deliver the work. It's not only knowledge, but you have a nice way of communicating with the students, and clarity and warmth. So I thank you for your contributions, and I also thank you for arranging for many of us to talk to you and get recorded so that you have something about the history of our department. So many thanks for that.
Thank you.
As far as biography, yes, I was born in Egypt of a Christian family from way back, as far as the records could go. My father used to be the local director of an English mission of churches and schools in Cairo. So he was kind of shuttled back and forth between Cairo and London to do that kind of thing. And I was fortunate to be able to shuttle with him back and forth from Cairo to London. So although I was born in Cairo, I have a little bit of English residence and upbringing and understanding of the English culture a little bit. And after I left Egypt for good, in 1960, when I came to this country, I have been to England several times, including living there for 3 months at a time. And so I feel like I'm sort of a city person. And early on in my life with Cairo, London, and when I came to this country, and people would say, "Where are you from?" After years and years, and yes, I was born in Cairo, but I really am from Cairo, from London, Buffalo, New York, Chapel Hill, Baltimore. I really don't have roots. I admire people when they say, you know, I was born in this house, my father was born in this house, my grandfather was born. I can't say that. I've just lived in, we lived in cities, mostly live in apartments.
Mm-hmm.
So when first house I had was in Buffalo, and I was so happy to have a yard and was able to go, I cut the grass. People say, well, you can have somebody cut the grass. No, I won't cut the grass, because I never cut the grass in my life. So it was sort of fascinating thing to have a yard and grass in the house, having lived in apartments as a city person. So that's about the background, and I was raised as Christian in Cairo, which is interesting in a way because you always think of minorities, you know, that at the time I was growing up, we and the Jewish population made about 5 or 6% of the country.
Each or together?
Together. Right? I think the Jewish population may be 1.5, the Christian will be 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
But we kind of felt, you know, we are like the Muslim feasts, the Ramadan, and it was wonderful. You know, you can watch it and colorful, and the Muslim people were really very nice and cordial, but he felt a little alienated. It's not our Christmas or our Hanukkah or Rosh Hashanah or all these. So, and interesting enough, I went to medical school in Cairo, but at the time was a lot of British medicine and British administration, and actually my degree was recognized in London as an equivalent to a degree. But what's interesting is to enter medical school in Egypt at the time, there were only there had been 200. It's very much different now.
Only 200?
200 students.
In medical school?
In medical school. There was one big one in Cairo, which was very much British orientation. And almost everything else in the country has a bit of favoritism. And if you are a minority, you probably have less chance to enter, the rector or a dean or whatever, because that's sort of like any other country. The majority always win in a way. However, to enter medical school at my time, and I believe they still do a bit of it today, it would perhaps the only institution at the time in a country which has a lot of corruption like many other countries, was based on merit. What they would do is in high school, the entire country, they take one exam in high school and they rank the students.
So in Britain they had the A-levels. I think in Britain they were called the A-levels, I think.
Yes.
Were they called the A-levels in Egypt?
A-levels?
A-levels, A-levels. In Britain they had the O-levels at the end of primary school, and then the A-levels in high school, and that's what determined whether you would go to university, or you would go to...
It's something like that, and I'm not sure of the designation, but the high school was, the primary and secondary schools are very much kind of the British type of thing. You know, the high school is 5 years. The last 2 years of high school would be the equivalent of
be the first 2 years of undergraduate here, I think.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that, yes, I think more like if you're in a medical school, the first 2 years of the medical school would be equivalent of the people measuring it in pre-med year. The number of years when you add them up, primary school, high school, college, like medical school here is 4 years, medical school in Cairo is 7, and England as well, 7 years, because there are 2 years that you do them in college here, you do them in medical school. So the number of years are very much similar, but kind of divided differently. But the merit system was, And that's how people like me got into it easily. Take a national exam, rank the students, and the top 200 students out of, I don't know, thousands, they are offered the opportunity to enter medical school. So we take it because that's one of the things open. So I ranked something about 101 or 102. I was very proud of that. My father was very pleased. So the medical school, the Jews and Christians made 50% of the medical school, and we made about 5-6% of the population. That shows you how when the merit system works, you are not excluded from a school that you really like to enter to. But I don't think I know of any other major institutions that was totally merit. You're standing in class, not your money or parents or religion that will offer you to enter medical school. I was fascinated. That's how I got into medicine in a way. And the education there was fantastic. It was absolutely first rate. And actually when I came to this country, I took the equivalent exams for medical education and I passed very easily.
Was that before you enrolled at UNC, or?
No, actually while I was. I could have done it there, but I wasn't thinking of.
So while you were a biostatistics student, you took?
Yeah, actually.
You took the medical exam.
I took the medical exam because, as I said, I wasn't sure if this is what I want to do, and it sounded very difficult to me then. So I said maybe I should go back to medicine, and if I did, I wanted to make sure that my credentials are verified, and so I did that.
So that answered the question that I had last night as I was driving home with Marion about how could he apply for a residency program without passing the exams for foreign medical graduates. But you had passed them already.
Oh, sure.
Was the answer. So what led you to come to UNC? I mean, you were in Egypt, you had a medical degree.
Yeah, how did I come?
How did you think of it? I mean...
Well, I was kind of interested in a little bit of, I got, if you are in a country like Egypt, they had a very endemic diseases like bilharziosis, schistosomiasis, this kind of thing that is prevalent among farmers. They're exposed to it, they go barefooted, and then the larva or the worm will get into it, and they get sick, and they would be like 70% of them will have bilharziosis, which they have blood in urine, that affects the bladder and may cause bladder cancer. They used to say that teenagers menstruate because when they become teenagers and working in the field, they get infected and they have blood in urine, so they do that. So I was kind of, when I finished medical school, I ran a clinic in the village, and I could see this 70% of people I see, they have this problem, and we treat them one at a time. And as we treat them one at a time, you cure them in a way, and then next year they go out in the field and get infected again. So I sort of, and in medical school we had courses in public health epidemiology, which I didn't attend.
You didn't attend them?
Much. A little bit of it, but I was busy with wanting surgery and internal medicine. So, but anyway, I began, as I treating in clinics like that, began to think of, is anything you can do to help people as a group rather than individually? I wasn't sophisticated enough to know what I was thinking about, but it just occurred to me that so futile. I go and I used to be, nurses would do the injection, but doctors would do the injection too because there's shortage of staff. So, and we talk about lots of people. So I did quite a bit of treating people, but it's very discouraging. Treat them today and next. Yeah, I go to the clinic and people will be lining up a mile-long people wanting to treat it. It's a village country, there's no medical care. And I did delivered babies and did little surgery. Because I was
This was the
doctor.
end of the 1950s?
Yeah, that was actually when I finished my internship in between 59 and 60, that year, before I left. I was working in a village, and I did everything that a medical doctor would do. Not major surgery, but
a lot more than a medical doctor would do nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean,
With very little, I didn't even have an X-ray. All I have, I can do a urine test and look at the microscope to see if there's anything wrong with it. So you rely heavily on your senses and judgment rather than laboratories and X-rays and that kind of thing. So that's the way it went, that interest in the population. And then there was a friend of a colleague of mine who has been here at Carolina, actually biostatistics, and mentioned the fact that it would be nice for people like me to study biostatistics, and I got a fellowship to send me here to study biostatistics.
From Egypt? From the Egyptian government?
From the ministry, yeah. Now,
so who was your friend, if you'd like to tell the recording, who was your friend?
Oh, he was not really a friend. He was a professor. He worked actually with Bernie Greenberg. I'm kind of blocking his name.
Okay.
But he and Bernie Greenberg, my predecessor as dean, got to know each other very well. So he would recommend people to come to Carolina. That's how I came to Carolina, because I heard from him. Carolina is really a good place to study public health, and especially biostatistics. So that's how I said public health biostatistics, my interest in population. So I would come and do that, not really thinking through what is it really when I study public health, biostatistics. Is that what they really want?
They kept you away from epidemiology.
Well, then get back into epidemiology.
So you arrived at the Carolina Inn?
Yes.
In 1960?
That's right.
And you asked where UNC was?
At
that time, Carolina was part of UNC.
Actually, it's about 54 years ago to this day. We are in October 10. I think it was September, I remember it was September 11. And I would say, I used to say this is my first September 11 when I came to this country, then the terrible September 11, which we witnessed years later. So I came and started, it's then 54 years ago. It's hard to believe. Of course, I was 10 years old then when I...
Right, yeah, I figured. You were clearly a child prodigy. So last night you told some of your reminiscences. If you want to just say one or two things about your biostatistics career.
Yeah, when as I said, that I could have stayed in there and do it, but I didn't feel fulfilled in a way, because although I was fascinated by the method, when coming back from medical practice, I didn't see the relevance of it. It might have come later, and that's why actually Bernie Greenberg, and as I said then, there were few students, few faculty. You really get personal treatment. Nowadays, you probably won't be able to see the dean, or if you would, it would be for 5 minutes. Then you sit with them and talk with them. It's a whole different story. That's why he was so visionary.
Bernie
Greenberg.
He was chair of biostatistics.
Chair of biostatistics. And I didn't see it that way. He saw that having medical background and doing biostatistics as a statistician might not be the best place. And maybe he thought that, maybe that's why I wasn't really making good grades, and I wasn't turned on by it. And he thought that epidemiology would be the place for me. And actually, that's what he did. Said, I talked to John, Castle. So here you are, my predecessor was dean, talking to my predecessor as chair, and here I'm a student struggling, not realizing that one day I succeed these people. It's really mind-boggling. So, and then they said, well, think that you are be better in epidemiology. That's why I laugh, what's the difference? So there is a difference.
So you didn't know what epidemiology was at the time?
Well, I took course, we took the introductory course.
That's what I was going to say. So you took Epi 160?
So, yeah, I think
With
something
John
like
Castle?
that. I think so.
John Castle was teaching it, I assume?
Yes.
And
He
were
was
other,
teaching the whole thing, I guess, yeah.
were other faculty, did you have the labs and so on as well in those days?
Yes. I have to kind of look at my notes maybe.
50-something years ago.
There was labs run by younger faculty.
It was run by the faculty, weren't they?
Senior students, yeah. And then Al Roller, John Castle, Al Roller, there's a man which you don't hear about his name very much, John Fulton.
John Fulton.
Who used to be, he's a dentist by training. And then the other fourth person, which I blocked.
Was it Ralph Patrick?
Ralph Patrick. Ralph Patrick was an anthropologist. And then 2 or 3 years later, Bert Kaplan came, and David Jenkins, Bob Wilson.
Bob Wilson. In epidemiology, I remember him, he went into mental
As
health.
a sociologist, mental health.
But was he part of epidemiology also?
Initially, yeah, he was a member of the department. And then the department began to grow in terms of faculty, but that's how it was. When I was a student, there was about 4 faculty, 4 or 5.
So was Sidney Clark there?
No,
he had left?
Sidney Clark came in, I guess, in 57, maybe 3 or 4 years before I came. And Sidney Clark was chair, and then when he left, they asked John Castle to be chair. When I came in 1960, John Castle was chair for about maybe 3 years.
Oh, okay. So, so there were 5, according to the, I was looking at the annual report, actually, for the
Yes,
department.
I just got it from memory. So.
Well, I was trying to remember also who it was. There was John Castle, there was Al Roller, there was Ralph Patrick, there was John Fulton, and there was a 5th family member whose name
Could be,
Oh, I
mentioned Ralph Patrick. Right?
I mentioned Ralph Patrick, yeah. I can look that up. I knew just the other night I knew, but...
Yeah, there might be, if I see the name, I would remember. But these are clear, you know. Al was very new too, you know. He was coming from industry, and Al prided himself, and we were proud of him as an epidemiologist without training in epidemiology. As an MD but no degree, and we were kind of very proud that he.
Well, and Ralph Patrick did not have training in epidemiology.
PhD, that's right.
And did John Fulton?
I am not sure. John Fulton might have had some public health training from dentistry. Otherwise, he probably will not be a good fit. But I'm not positive. But definitely Ralph Patrick and Al Roller did not have public health training. And I don't know if John Castle had formal public health training. He obviously practiced.
I think actually he did a master's degree at UNC.
Oh, before he became.
In the early 50s.
Yeah, now I remember that he did that. And then he went back to South Africa.
Yes.
And they asked him to come back after Sidney Clark to chair the department.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
So you were a student from 1960 until
64.
64.
I left in 64, went to Buffalo.
And you did a PhD?
Yes.
And
I had a master in biostatistics.
You did Masters in Biostatistics. You actually did that
Finished,
as well.
yeah, I finished.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, my master.
You really were an overachiever.
Although I didn't do well, I barely passed, but I did finish it and got the degree.
So who was your advisor in biostatistics? Was it Bernie Greenberg?
Bernie Greenberg.
Okay. And who was your advisor in epidemiology?
John Castle was.
Yeah. Okay.
And I did, actually they used to give DRPHs, I think. And I was interested in more of the science of public health other than application, which I ended up doing more application than science. That was, I think maybe it was the first or second Ph.D. degree in epidemiology.
Was yours, the one you got?
There was another person, I guess two of us were kind of the early on.
Now we have, I think, 100 and something PhD students.
So we got the PhD in '64, and I went to Buffalo.
So just before you go to Buffalo, let me ask you some more about the
Yeah,
department.
sure.
So who else was on your doctoral committee?
Faculty committee.
You know, the committee that judged your dissertation?
For the PhD.
Right.
Altarola was John Castle Altarola, and I should have looked at. I have my dissertation and have the number.
Okay, we'll add that to this
but
later.
Possibly Ralph Patrick, but I'm not sure. Oh no, David Jenkins as a sociologist.
Oh, because he'd come.
Because I was doing work in Evans County, and interviewed people and doing some psychological relationships with heart attacks. And Castle, Tarola, and Jenkins. Definitely. There are one or two others which
Okay. Was Bernie as a biostatistician or
Bernie
Greenberg?
yeah, no.
You didn't have a biostatistician on the committee in those
No,
days.
yeah, I think that's a good idea. There must have been a biostatistician in the committee, and
I can look that up.
Just-
That's all on the record.
I would look it up if you wish.
So you went to Buffalo.
Yes.
What led you to do that?
Why did they go to Buffalo? They offered me.
It's cold there, for example.
They offered me a position. I had several offers on the faculty, including actually Hopkins. People ask, where were you when Kennedy was assassinated? Which was November
1963.
1963. I was actually in the office with Abe Lilienfeld. He was offering me an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. That's where I was. And I remember hearing it, and we all got very disturbed. And when I left, I went to the airport, and everybody was so sad and quiet. But that's where I was. I was being offered a job at Johns Hopkins as assistant professor.
But you didn't take it.
I didn't take it. I went to Buffalo because Warren Winkelstein, whom I'm sure you know the name.
I know the person.
Who is actually a fellow had been a fellow with Abe Lilienfeld.
Oh.
Abe Lilienfeld was his mentor. And I went to Buffalo because they had a good history of epidemiology and public health. People like militaris, Abe Lilienfeld, and several others came out to Buffalo. They offered me a position which was not even assistant professor, less money than Hopkins would, and definitely not known at the University of Buffalo. And the weather is terrible. But I saw that the people that I'd be working with, they will help me to advance my career. So it was totally a gamble on people that will help me in my career.
And who were those people?
Well, Warren Winkelstein.
Well, Warren, yes.
Mainly.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's Harry Saltz, who's another person who became a friend of mine, was in health service research. And then they have very close relationship with the health department. And so that would be a kind of a nice laboratory of epidemiology. But I just saw it that this would be a good place for me to grow. And then later on, decide on a good place to go and weather and people. But I said the first job would be based on my being advanced in a way that would be comfortable professionally. It was totally a professional decision.
It's an illustration of your ability to think strategically,
Yeah.
which you've always had. I mean, at least the time I've known you.
This was a gamble. I think sometimes when it works out, you can look back and say, well, gee, I was very smart. It just did work. Maybe I'm good judging things, but that was a good decision for me, because I really made my career in Buffalo. I did most of my publications there because there's no obligation except to do research and publish. And I did teaching because the chair of the department said, teach. He said, how? I said, find out how to teach. You know, they left you out on your own. So that was very, very nice. And when I left Buffalo, came back to Chapel Hill, I already had publications and experience, and that's when I went to work in the health department.
Mm-hmm. You were the deputy
health commissioner.
Health commissioner. So Warren Winkelstein, when you were giving your lecture last night in the Ibrahim seminar room,
right.
I was remembering that, and I guess it was 8 years ago, maybe 10, Warren Winkelstein spoke in that room.
Yes.
And we don't have a video of it, and I so wished we did. It was a day when there was this big snowstorm, and so the room was almost empty.
Yes,
But he was there, and he gave a great talk.
Yeah.
So I was remembering that. So, so you were in Erie County, building your career, and what happened to bring you back to Chapel Hill?
Well, after 7 years in Buffalo, including the being deputy commissioner of health, which, as I said, you know, gave me the experience, administration, and practice, and which led to my being chosen to be chair and dean. Excuse me. I wanted to make a move. You know, 7 years was
7-year itch.
Yeah, exactly. And I said I might as well move somewhere. Some water here.
So did you then applied for a position at Chapel Hill, or?
I just, at the time again, was so different than now. At the time again, it's sort of like mom and pop operation. You just, people know, it's a small field, you know, it was very, very few of us.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there were only 12 schools of public health.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, by Warren Winkelstein, my mentor, I told him, you know, that I'm ready now to make a move. He actually went to Berkeley a few years before, but I made it known that I'm ready to move, and it's a close community. So people who in position to hire people, they talk to people and say, well, you know, Michel is looking for work or ready to move. So I got lots of offers, sort of, you know, to visit. One of them going back to Hopkins with Abe Lilienfeld for the second time.
Poor Abe, he must have thought you really
offered me a job. And that was very serious because I was, you know, like, now I'm a faculty member.
Yeah, you were established.
Contribution, semi-established. And then Carolina also offered me the job. I came to Carolina mainly because Carolina is wonderful and it's my home, and I remember it with great affection. And I thought it would be nice to come back to be a faculty. All I want to just be a faculty member, do research. And I didn't go to Hopkins then because the political situation was very volatile, and I remember Baltimore was like a war zone. You know, you couldn't move anywhere without an ID, and there was so much crime. And this was in late 60s, early 70s, when the whole country was in turmoil.
That was after the riots.
And the riots, and Baltimore really didn't look. Baltimore still has its problems, but much better. Baltimore didn't look like an exciting place to live in at the time. Most of the faculty would live way out in the suburban areas and commute. That didn't really appeal very much. And Chapel Hill was such a nice, lovely place. So.
Now, were you married then?
Yes, I was.
When did you get married?
I was married in '62.
So here in Chapel Hill?
Yes, and Dan, my oldest, was born in Chapel Hill.
Uh-huh.
And the other three was born in Buffalo.
Uh-huh. So you had young children, so Chapel Hill, a wonderful place to,
Oh yeah,
to come.
that actually talking to some of your faculty members, and many of them come to Chapel Hill because they could raise their kids.
Mhm.
Very nice.
Mhm.
And you had the same experience.
Well, I didn't come to raise my kids,
Yeah.
because we were here.
Right.
I came because Chapel Hill was such a nice place.
That's true.
I had heard that. No, I'd heard that when I was in England,
Yes.
because I was in England for a few years.
Yes, I understand.
I met somebody and she said, Chapel Hill's a lovely place.
Yeah, it is a very nice place. But sometimes you think of it that maybe it's not a real, it's different now, but when I was here, Chapel Hill didn't look like the real world in a way. It was mostly university community,
Mhm.
and either a faculty or a student. A place like Baltimore or Buffalo, you have all walks of life. The real world.
That's the real world.
Chapel Hill wasn't quite the real world, but
It's much nicer.
really nice.
So, something that occurred to me as I was thinking of notes that I want to ask. I remember there was the University of Minnesota summer program.
Yes, yes.
Did you go to that when you were a student?
No,
To take classes? Because I know at a certain
no,
point our
no. I
students
went as a teacher.
in 71 or 2 or...
Yeah, early 70s. They invited me to teach with Warren and Uncle Steve, the introductory course. Then I taught with Al, actually, a little bit on the health service research. And then I did my own course in policy.
But when did our students start doing... I remember every summer our students would...
Yeah, I went from...
But what I'm wondering is when our students... I mean, when I enrolled in the program, it pretty much stopped.
Yeah.
But our regular doctoral students would then spend the summer in Minnesota taking the short courses. And I just wondered if you remembered when that practice began. Was it before you went to teach?